तत्परम्पर्यय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ योग महर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरि गुरु महाराज की जय। ओम योगचारिणी पुदुवै कलैमामणि पुदुवै शक्ति अम्माजी मीनाक्षी देवी भवनानी गुरु माता की जय। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। नमस्ते, नमस्कार, वणक्कम, स्वागतम, bonjour, buongiorno, buonasera, huya more, boreida, kia ora, salamat pagi. A beautiful morning from this part of the world. There's a bit of noise happening outside, so I've had to shift inside today. And I think it's a good thing because sometimes we can be outside, sometimes we have to be inside, outgoing, ingoing, extroverted, introverted, ambiverted. Maybe that's where we need to go. This morning, I'll be taking a look at a more recent modern occurrence, and that is the occurrence of the modernization of yoga. How things have manifested in recent times. Trying to understand how the concept of asana, which we have seen is to be so expanded, not just a physical, but a metaphysical and a transphysical state of being, asi to be, and how that today has come into a very limited box of what we call asana. A bit of history. We saw how we had the concept of asana, a concept of asana that was given to us by Maharishi Patanjali, and we saw the concept of to be, asi, sthira sukha, prayatna, shaitilya, and coming to that dvandva, atita state, anabhigata. But then that got codified, solidified in the teachings of the Hatha tradition. So you then have the Shiva Samhita, the Hatha Ratnavali, the Hatha Pradipika, you have the Garanda Samhita, and all of these type of texts where it started to get solidified, either 32 asanas or 84 asanas or 16 or 15. All of this started to happen. And sort of what happened is that asana became an integral part of something you could do with your body, the soma, to influence the psyche, as we saw last week, the psychosomatic and somatopsychic aspects of asana. Now, what happened is that this sort of solidified into a tradition of what could be called physical culture. And in fact, the idea of culturing ourselves. When Swami Balayogi started Kaivalyadama, a very important concept that he brought forth, which was very popular, is that there are cultural asanas. So people say, oh, cultural asanas, what does it mean? It means the practices which enable you to culture yourself. Culture means growth and development. So how do you grow and develop at all levels of your existence utilizing asana, the cultural asanas? So you have the so-called meditative asanas, which are the seated postures, relaxative asanas, which are the lying down postures, and then the vast majority of asanas fall into cultural asanas. So the concept of, even when he started the college, yoga and cultural synthesis was a very important aspect. Cultural synthesis, physical synthesis, these type of words came into being. Now what happened is that in Indian tradition, we must realize yoga cannot be taken separately. So as part of the Indian tradition, there has been a very strong foundation of physical culture. And even in the times of Lord Rama, times of Lord Krishna, we find the episodes of the wrestling tradition, the Malyuddha. Malyuddha was a very important tradition which is part and parcel. And you have Krishna, when he was young, going and having the Malyuddha battle with Mushtikasura, Chanura, and ultimately with Kansa himself. You have the tradition of, these type of Malyuddha. It was part of the Kshatriyan lifestyle. They were warriors, they were the soldiers, so they wanted to be physically fit, emotionally balanced, and mentally stable so that they could battle in a righteous manner, dharmic battle. It was not adharmic, it was always dharmic. So there was this very important tradition of Malyuddha. So there are many, many activities in Malyuddha which were part of developing the body, but not just limited to the body. Let us not demean it as being only body-centric. It was body-centric, but then it also expanded to take into consideration the emotions and mental state to produce the best of the Kshatriyans. In fact, in our tradition, we have a concept called Kshatriyan Kriya. We have the Malla Kriya. These are practices that have come in from those traditions. So it's not like, all the yogis were just sitting and meditating all the time or standing on the head all the time. There were all these activities going on as part and parcel of working with the body in a righteous manner, dharma-based. So dharmic utilization of the body with all its potential. Because in modern times, people want to make it sound like all asanas came from Russian gymnasts and, English acrobats. No, not at all. The thousands of years of tradition in India has had a strong physical component, and yoga being part of the culture, there has been a living exchange between the yogic practices and especially the bahiranga, the external practices. So the external practices which could be evaluated. How long could you jump? How high could you jump? How many trees could you climb? How many mountains? Yojna. And they talk about how you can leap, how many yards you can leap. And idols of Indian culture like Hanumanji, Vayuputra, Pavanasuta Hanuman is having all those capacities, amazing physical capacities, which is why he is sort of the icon of all our Malyuddha people in India, Hanumanji. So there has always been this culture, and there was this evolution of asanas happening. Evolution of asanas as part of a cultural synthesis, a cultural mold that was happening as yoga as part of Indian culture, Sanatana Dharma, along with all these different traditions, including the Natya tradition. And yes, traditions like Kalari Payetu, no doubt about it, have influenced it. The traditions of Natya have also been part of it, all the different stances that are there, because ultimately, if you go back, Lord Shiva is the Lord of dance also, and he is the Adi Yogi also. So Adi Yogi Shiva, Nataraja Shiva, you can see how there will be a lot of interaction between the yogic physical posturing and the Natya based practices. So there was this cultural ethos going on, and there was an evolution happening. As the yogis started to bring in different practices, we have seen how practices based on life forms, the living beings, the non-living entities. So you had the bridge which is connecting. So Setu Bandha Asana came into being. Like the Rama Setu down at Rameshwaram, connecting the tip of Rameshwaram with Sri Lanka. The Rama Setu, the Setu that is connecting. Setu Bandha Asana. Meru Asana, Parvatasana for the mountain. The Chakrasana like the wheel. So that you have that sense of how can you keep on moving as you need to move and not stagnate. Because the wheel is a symbol of transformative growth. Rajasic Guna. So all these were happening and asanas started to move into various aspects of Indian living traditions. And so always in Indian traditions, there have been numerous asanas which were given numerous names by the different traditions. We have seen how somebody who's teaching in the Kashmiri Shaivite tradition and has a yoga component, their perspective of the practices may have been different than someone from the tip of India, the Dravidian boiling pot of culture. Their perspective, as in the Tirumandiram of Tirumula, would have been different. The Maharashtrian tradition, the Bengal tradition, the Gujarati tradition, the Andhra Telugu tradition, all of these traditions brought in their cultural ethos in the respective living traditions, the Guru Parampara. Just as in music we have so many diverse traditions, in dance we have diverse traditions. That is the beauty of India, unity in diversity. So many traditions came, and so different yoga traditions would have different approaches to asana. They would have different nomenclature for the same asana. So either the same asana would have different names or different asanas would have the same name. This was how it was growing. This is how the growth was occurring, because I must remind you, yoga is a living tradition. It's not yet dead. Bad news, all yoga scholars out there who want to kill yoga and study it. No. Yoga is a living, evolving tradition. Every moment the yogic tradition, even right now as I speak, it is evolving, it is growing, it is transforming as per the cultural ethos of Sanatana Dharma in the Bharatiya Sanskriti, the Indian cultural ethos. It is evolving. This is how a living culture grows. It doesn't stagnate. Stagnation is death. Stagnation is death and leads to decay. So the living tradition of yoga, borrowing, adapting, having a cultural exchange with Natya, Sangeeta, the Malyud, the Kalaripayattu, all of these activities were coming together in different traditions. The emphasis given in traditions, say, that have come down from the Kaivalya Dharma and the Yoga Institute, whose common guru, Paramahamsa Madhav Das ji, he gave his perspective. That perspective was taken differently by Swami Kuvalananda ji. It was taken differently by Sri Yogendra ji, and they took it in their perspective. Similarly, T.K. Deshikacharya, his father, the great Krishnamacharya, he had his tradition based on what? The cultural ethos, the tradition of what was part and parcel of South Indian ethos. And in that developed these practices that would have come from different aspects, the ritualistic aspects of life, the cultural aspects of life, and practices evolved that were taught to the young people, giving them the challenges to work with themselves, develop self-esteem, swabhiman, suya maryadai, and develop this capacity. I can, I will, I am able. That type of effort was brought in. And this was then taken forward by his students, be it Padma Bhushan, B.K. Sayangarji, or Patabi Joyce, or taken to the West, Indra Devi and others. So this is how the tradition was evolving. The asanas were being developed, the asanas were being codified, different cultural embellishments were happening. And all of this was part and parcel of the cultural ethos of Sanatana Dharma. It was not diverse from it. And up to here, you can see how the plant is growing. Different branches are growing, different flowers are coming, different leaves are coming, but it's all coming from the same root. And hence that life force was continuing in different ways. One of the roses was blue, one was green, one was red, one was pink, one was white, but they were all roses connected to the root. Now what happened? Well, he started to go out of India. These teachings were taken out. Now, when they were taken out, sadly, many of the pioneers who took the yoga teachings out of India took India also out of the teachings. All the pioneers didn't realize the potential dangers of what was happening. And that is why today yoga and asana have become synonymous. Because if it continued within that cultural tradition, it was evolving, it was living, and then suddenly it was taken out, and it's like you take the plant out of the ground. Because you want to take it to the USA, you want to take it to the UK, you want to take it to Australia. So you have taken it out of the soil which was nourishing it. So yoga was taken out of India and India was taken out of yoga. And that's the moment where asana started to become a physical exercise. Because asana was taken out of the context of Ashtanga yoga, in which it had that amazing space for itself. Now what happened? Well, people like Theos Bernard brought this cultural aspect. People thought it was cultural, but it was basically exercise put in a new dress. This was then taken forward. And what happened? They took it forward, but then when path makers, and especially the time of Backache Iyengar, my yoga uncle who I love dearly, I have always respected and admired. When he took his perspective of yoga to the West, he had this amazing understanding. He had an amazing understanding of what the body is, what the asanas would do. He had this amazing understanding and he took it out. And he started demonstrating and people were like, this is wonderful. Can we have a piece of that pie? Can we also do it? He said, okay, yeah. Now what happened is you had people who had no cultural basis, people who had no understanding of what this whole picture was, just looking at the physical structure of asana and starting to imitate what Guruji was doing. And this started to happen. And so the practices, when he said this is Adho Mukha Shvanasana, they said, oh, that's too tough, down dog. Chakrasana, wheel posture. And this is where what happened is the Samskrita was taken out of yoga to make it more sellable, more palatable, more to enhance the sales quotient. And so Samskrita was taken out, Sanatana Dharma was taken out, India was taken out, and asana became a physical exercise model. And then what Iyengar with all his years of practice, coaching, guidance by his guru Krishnamacharya assisted by Patabi Joyce all of them, they put so much of effort into coming to where they wanted, and people said, can I come for the weekend and learn all of those asanas? Well, now you are stuck there. And so you have to cater to your clientele. Now, how do you get them into the posture when they have not prepared for it? It is often said, if you have 1 hour to cut a tree, spend the first 45 minutes on sharpening your axe. And then in 15 minutes, you'll cut the tree. Same thing here. The 45 minutes of preparation is the most important component for the 15 minutes of performance. But people wanted the 15 minutes of performance without the 45 minutes of preparation. This is where the problem comes. They didn't want the preparation, so they wanted a shortcut. And hence, props came into yoga. So the asana practice, which was a practice of going step by step, stage by stage, growing into the asana, became something that you pushed yourself or pulled yourself into. Pushing and pulling into asanas. Yes, Neil. Pushing and pulling into asanas became the in thing because of the lack of that 3/4 of the time, which was the preparation phase. Nobody wanted to waste time in preparation. When I can have a pulley that will get me into it, when I can tie myself upside down and think I'm doing Shirsasana, why should I make the effort to try and find that inner balance? And suddenly, this whole thing exploded. This exploded. And what happened when it exploded? What happened when it exploded? Today, in many places, if you go for a yoga class, you will not be allowed to join the class if you don't have all the props. Some of our students in Europe, they went to one of these big yoga events and they wanted to join a class, and the person said, you don't have your bolster and you don't have your straps and you don't have your blanket, and so you can sit and watch but you cannot participate. They said, we have been doing yoga for 25 years. No. You have to have all the paraphernalia, otherwise you cannot do the asana. How far we have gone from that aspect of all that yoga needs is you, and not even your clothes. Yeah, this no clothes yoga, please do it in a closed space. Don't go out and display all your treasures to the world, especially when others may not appreciate it. If you don't have the strap, if you don't have the bolster, you cannot even join the class. How far away from the original we have gone. Cheese has truly become unpalatable chalk. Then people went to the next step. They said, well, Iyengarji, about 200 asanas and about 600 photos. One of the first standardization of asana is definitely, my dear Iyengarji, an amazing standardization that is useful even today. The next part came and they said, we are bored. We are bored of doing the same chakrasana all the time. Wheel pose. We are tired of doing the same camel all the time, down dog all the time, up dog all the time. So, creativity came in. The creative license. Do whatever you want because you are you. The tradition says, follow the tradition, follow the dharma. Understand your place in the sequence. No, I am me. I can create what I want. And so those who are flexible, those who had abilities, started to create asanas. And this is where started that free for all. And suddenly asanas are being invented. Asanas were never invented. Asanas were discovered, not invented. In the tradition, asanas were discovered as the person went into states of consciousness. In order to understand other fellow living beings, they went into these postures automatically, and then they said, this is what it is. Today it is like I can turn my right leg this way. Now, if I can turn my left leg that way, it becomes my own asana, and it becomes my name followed by asana, because I have found it. I have invented it, not even found it. The ego took over and people started inventing asanas. Suddenly, you had this new asana come out, and that asana, flamingo, all these type of asanas came out of creativity, and suddenly this became what asana was. Now, along with this creativity and ability, because some people have ability, they are naturally flexible. So they started to doing. Not just the normal version, the advanced and the super duper advanced, and beyond the super duper advanced. And they said, this is asana. And people said, oh, we have to go there. Put some more pulleys, put some more blocks, put some more bolsters, have someone push you. And this hands-on approach, which was never part of the tradition, pushing and pulling people. Naturally, when you push and pull, you start to have the tendency to put your hand in the wrong place. And it started to create its own issues of invasion of physical space and all the litigation that comes out of this. Crazy stuff. Because people thought they had a creative license to do whatever they wanted. The total adharma model. Dharma is to do what you have to do, not what you want. You have to do what you have to do because you are you. Not doing whatever you want because your ego wants to do it. And this whole unrighteous expansion in any direction they wanted. Now, of course, the good side of it is people started to have a good exercise. They started to work on the body. They went out and did something rather than, have a sleepover. And they, instead of getting drunk, went to yoga class and they all started to do this. And it was all and all and all about me, not we. The whole antithesis of the movement, moving from sthirata and sukhata into ahankarata, asmita. Asmita and ahankara became the predominant feature. And then what happened? People started to say, oh, look at my asana, it's better than yours. I can do the double leg, triple fingered, upside down, inverted handstand. So I am better yogi than you. Totally out of context. Yes, and then hot yoga. Oh my God. Sweaty, hot yoga with minimal clothing. A recipe for disaster. How this all mutated? How this all mutated from that sthirata and sukhata of asana? And this is where what happened is in pushing, yoga injuries came into place. Because you were not doing that 45 minutes of preparation for the 15 minutes of performance anymore. You were doing 1 hour of performance with no preparation. Naturally, injuries came in. Naturally, people started to injure themselves and injure others in trying to push and pull into postures that they were not ready to do yet. Because I have to do it by tomorrow. Well, then what happened? Social media. Instagram yoga. Oh my God. I have to post a newer asana today than yesterday. Get more followers. It's all become this external orientation. External orientation where the focus has totally gone away from the internal journey. The whole goal was the internal journey of yoga. And instead of the internal journey of yoga, it has gone into this externalization. Now, along with this, there have been some amazing books. I told you about B.K. Iyengar's Light on Yoga with about 600 images of about 200 plus asanas. D. Rose in South America put out a book with thousands of postures. In fact, the D. Rose method has now tried to separate itself from yoga and create its own separate niche, a space for itself. You have a book with 2,100 asanas. Amazing creations have come into being. It has given space for creativity. It has given a challenge for young people. So that part of it is good. But then it has also brought with it the risks. And along with this came in the adaptation of these asanas for therapeutic purposes. And so what happened is people started to say, initially what was the asana? The purpose of asana was sthirata sukhata. Dvandva Atita. But then what became the purpose? I have diabetes, what asana can I do? I have hypertension, what asana can I do? Is there one asana that will cure my migraine headache? And what started to happen was this turn came and everybody started to become their own doctor, their own therapist. And suddenly people with half-baked knowledge, people who had no understanding of what was going on started to say, oh, this asana is very good. That asana is very good. And then someone said, how does it work? Again, they didn't know what they were talking about. They said whatever they want. And so much of misinformation on asana. You go on the net today, 5 asanas for diabetes, 2 asanas for hypertension, the asana that will cure it all. And we went into this absolute quackery of asana. Quackery of asana. Now, the proper usage of asana in the context with the preparation will have therapeutic benefit, no doubt about it. But this is where you have to see what is that individual, where they are, where they need to go, and what are the practices that can help that individual. Not this idea again of standardization. Everybody got caught up in standardization. It's not standardization. We need to set standards. Everybody wants one asana, one name, and one methodology. Come on, you're talking about yoga, a living tradition. Having diverse perspectives and all coming together in a wholesome state of oneness. It has to only be done this way. Only this is Vrikshasana. In one tradition, Vrikshasana is standing on one leg. In another tradition, Vrikshasana is standing on your hands. So opposite. And this is why one has to be very careful, because everybody is trying to look at what the asana can give them rather than doing the asana for the sake of the asana itself. When you do Bhujangasana, you are creating that amazing experience we have talked about in the last 2 talks. Instead, it's like, will Bhujangasana help my backache? Yes, along the way, the fringe benefits of Bhujangasana, well, it could help your backache, depending on what type of backache you have. Because some people will have a backache where Bhujangasana will help. Some people may have a backache. If you have spinal stenosis, for example, the Bhujangasana may worsen your condition. So again, you have to think about what is that individual's condition. Where are they? Heya, hetu, hana, upaya has to be brought into the mix. Not just doing a weekend yoga teacher course and then another weekend yoga therapist certification by paying a lump sum to someone and then setting yourself a yoga quack. When it's taken out of the context, it becomes dangerous. As long as it's in the context, it is safe. My father used to say, yoga is as safe as mother's milk. Yes, he said that. Yoga is as safe as mother's milk. And then he had to add to it. Even mother's milk is not safe anymore. We have to understand yoga is safe in its context. It has been taken out of the context. People who have no idea what that asana is are trying to prescribe it. Prescription yoga. So, okay, you have diabetes. These are the 13 asanas you do along with 2 pranayamas. No. You may only need one asana, depending on who you are, where you are, and what is the status of your disease condition. If you do not go to the depth of the individual and where they are, you will not help them out of that place to where they can be. So asana became yoga. So asana also became yoga therapy. Yoga therapy is much, much bigger than just use of asanas. One of the most important aspects of yoga therapy is relaxation. Another very important aspect is learning to breathe. in a mindful manner. These are key tools. The asana comes later. But instead of that, you go in and put yourself in a pulley and go into an asana so that you will have a therapeutic benefit. No. This is where one has to be very careful that when asana is evolving into the modern context, when it is coming into yoga as a therapy, we need to understand that when it comes into that aspect of being a therapy, what is a therapy? It should help the person out of the suffering, move from dukkha to sukha. That is the goal of the therapy. Dukkha to sukha. That transformation, that growth, that evolution has to manifest in the individual. And this is where the asana that enables the person to move from dukkha to sukha is what is required. Whether it is Bhujangasana, whether it is Shirsasana, Sarvangasana is secondary. And this is why this whole idea that you'll go to a website or you'll go to some book and find what are the asanas for this condition. That type of standardization will never work. It will produce more problems than ever. Because the heya, what is the problem the person has? Hetu, why do they have that problem? Hana, where do you want to go? What is the goal? Where do you want to be? And upaya, what are the tools to help them attain that goal? What is the problem? What is the root cause? Root cause analysis of the problem. Where do you need to be? And what are the tools to get there? Heya, hetu, hana, upaya. The Chatur Vyuha model. This is the way we have to grow. So one person may benefit from Padmasana, another person may not benefit from Padmasana. One person may benefit from Bhujangasana, another person may not benefit. And then people say, oh my God, how do we standardize it to produce evidence? The evidence is in the fact that it has enabled the person to move from dukkha to sukha. That is the evidence. And this is why we have to move away from this one pill for one ill, which we are brought into here, and we say one asana for one condition. And we have fallen into the trap. We have fallen into a trap. Instead of playing to our strength, we are playing to somebody else's strength, and then we lose the game. We lose track of everything. Then what happened? Along the way, you started to have people who couldn't make it as a gymnast, people who couldn't make it as a contortionist, but they had skill. They said, well, what is the other field I can jump into and succeed? Yoga. So poor man's gymnastics became yoga. This is how it came in. And then, oh, yoga is all about the body. Put it in the physical education department. And the PT teachers will teach yoga in school. Jump, turn right, left, turn down, look up. The same as the PT drill. Your physical education drill, same thing came into asana. Again, in so many Indian universities, even today, yoga is found in the physical education department. Yoga is found in the physical education department and taught by physical educators. And in schools also it came in. Please, if I want allopath medicine, I go to an allopath, not to a homeopath. If I want a homeopath, I go to a homeopath, not to an osteopath. If you want yoga, go to someone who has the training and the understanding of yoga. Don't try to make a PT teacher a yoga teacher just because, yeah, it's all about the body. Okay, so they can do the same. With what? 1 month of training. So PT teachers, 1 month of training, they become the yoga instructors. Wow. No, not wow at all. Not wow at all. You need to understand. You need to understand the essence of what you are teaching. Otherwise, it is going to be an utter failure. So this was one more part. And then something for which we have to take some of the blame. Yogasana sport. what a journey that has been. In order to motivate the young people into the practice, Swamiji supported Yogasana sport. And I continue to support it nowadays with a few strings attached. Because we found that for the young people, especially in a country like India, everyone cannot be a class topper. Everyone cannot be the star in cricket. But what can happen? What can happen is that through the practice of yoga, they can start to come up in life. They can find an outlet for their amazing talent. And what we found is that young kids from underprivileged backgrounds, this is where making yoga accessible, Yogasana sport is one way that it became accessible to the lowest of the low strata of society in our country. And even today, kids who come from the most repressed, suppressed background, socially, economically, they can become the star in Yogasana sport. So just, it has given them that opportunity to showcase an inherent natural talent. A natural talent which otherwise is lost because they are not the class topper. And they are not the best looking. They are not the ones who go out there and hit a sixer and get all the fans. But they have the amazing talent in Yogasana. And this is where Yogasana sport, as one of the branches of yoga, Yogasana sport is not yoga totally. And this is why when we want to understand it, don't think that yoga is being made a sport. Yogasana sport is one component that if we nurture properly, it can start to impact the underserved, unreached populations in countries like India. And even today, I find that it is not the kids who come from the affluent families who win the competition. It will be the kids who come from the very backward areas. And they are given an opportunity to come up in life. They are given an opportunity for a social transformation and revolution to occur. So this has been the positive way that we have supported. And especially with the young people, if it is put in the context, whereas Ammaji tells our young kids at our Yogasana sport events, she says, if you win, wonderful. But even if you don't win, you are still winning because you have learned something about yourself. And we have seen it with thousands of young kids, how it has motivated them to practice. It has motivated them to come together and work together. And at that level, it is an amazing positive peer pressure that takes them away from drugs, alcohol, and the other vices that are strangulating society. Areas like Punjab in India today have become strangulated because the youth have been caught up in addictions. We need to bring back Yogasana sport for those youth. We take them away. They want that drive. They want that high. Let them have that high through that Yogasana sport. Give them a framework through which it can happen. But the danger is of course the ego. I have won and so I am the best yogi. No, you have won a medal in Yogasana sport, that's all. You are not being judged as a yogi. There's a big difference in this. And this has to be brought in. Similarly, what has that done? It has created more and more development of asanas, sort of stretching the human excellence. And that is beautiful. It is beautiful to see the young people, Dr. Sanjay Malpani and his team in Maharashtra, the work they are doing, Sri Mangesh, who's doing amazing work with the young people. I have seen from my childhood, Sri Gopalakrishnan from Bangalore, who Swamiji in 1989, when he organized the first international Yogasana sport event, had an amazing performance by Sri Hatasana Ratna Gopalakrishnan ji from Bangalore. What amazing stretching of human excellence was exhibited. Similarly, Sri Balmukund Singh from Delhi, who was working and still is associated with MD Navai there. What amazing performance in 1993. in the first International Yogasana Festival, the yoga festival at Pondicherry. And I will not forget that what happens is he went into this beautiful asana, a Trivikrama asana. In those days, no, it was not Trivikrama. It was actually Dhruva asana, which is also called Durvasana asana, where you put the leg over the back of the shoulder and you stand up. And he put his hands out and he gave the most beautiful smile at that moment. I still remember that moment with Sri Bal Mukund Singh, and where that Sukhata and that Sthirata was displayed. What beauty was displayed, what grace was displayed. So this is how we have to understand that these things have to be put into the context, given it in the context to the appropriate population. There is the danger that it goes, out of hand. And this is one of the reasons why I continue my father's legacy of supporting this in trying to retain the yoga in it. Yoga must be retained in yoga therapy. Yoga must be retained in yogasana sport. Yoga must be retained in any of the modern applications of yoga. Because if the yoga is not retained, how can it be? Then it's just sport. It's not yogasana sport. It's just therapy. It's not yoga therapy. This is where the principles of yoga, as enshrined in the structure of the Ashtanga of Maharishi Patanjali, has to be brought into it. So this modernization of asana has led to more development. But then what happens is that development should be a positive evolutionary growth and not a cancerous growth. We have to always remember normal growth is slow and steady. Slow, steady, controlled growth is normal growth. Fast, rapid, uncontrolled is cancer. So we have to make sure that the growth or whatever is being done should be done in a way that it grows organically and naturally, not artificially. Anything that is artificial will always be harmful in the long run. So let us make sure we retain this. And before I end today, I cannot but talk about the mutation of asana. The mutation of asana. One is the development of asana, the creative, exuberance of asana. There is the mutation of asana. And the mutation of asana, where does that come in? Cover page asanas. Cover page asanas. And what happened is all these yoga journals wanted to have these, slim, beautiful models doing asanas on it. And 99 times out of 100, what they will be doing is not an asana at all. It is called cover page asana. And it is a mutation. So instead of doing a twist, for example, you're supposed to twist like this, that they'll twist and then the cameraman will say, oh, but I cannot see your face. So they'll do, ee. And what happens? You have lost the asana. You have lost the asana for the sake of the cover page. So many of these. I at one point, 5-6 years ago, had put together about 50 cover pages of different yoga journals from around the world. And if I can find that, I'll share it with you because it was amazing. 50 images on the covers of yoga journals around the world, and they were not asanas at all. They are the mutated versions of asanas for cover page. Cover page mutation of asana. One of the things that really gets me. And then usage of asana to sell other products. They had the asana images to sell one of the laptops which is called Yoga because it was very flexible. The laptop could go in all directions, so it was called Yoga. And so they had a Yogasana to sell it. You have Yogasanas to sell so many things. The latest one is on courses to speak English. So there are courses, online courses, you learn to speak English better. Yeah, to sell undergarments also, Subhuji. Green tea, undergarments. But the latest one is to speak English. To speak English. And they have a person in Vrishchikasana. Yes, Vrishchikasana. It is so amazing. They have this Vrishchikasana guy, the scorpion posture. And, he's speaking into a mic. And they say, speaking good English doesn't have to be so tough. Speaking English doesn't have to be so tough like getting into Vrishchikasana. Using asana as a marketing tool. Oh my God, where we have gone. Where we have gone from the beautiful wisdom. Sthira Sukham Asanam Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapattibhyam Tato Dvandva Anabhighata. Modernization of Asana. Well, I try to be positive about it, but I think what we have done is we have definitely created more asanas. We have created things that are amazing, spellbinding, awesome. But have we lost the sthirata and sukhata of asana in the process? We really need to think of that deeply. Let's think about it. Let's see how this can grow organically. Because yoga is a living tradition. It will continue to grow. We are all part of that melting pot of the yoga tradition. What are we putting into that pot? What are we putting into it? How can we help the growth and the development in an organic, evolutionary, natural manner? See you all later. This has been our 80th week. Episode 80 of Scintillating Saturdays. Quite a journey. And happening because all of you log in and are with me each week. Let's keep this going as long as we can. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Have a wonderful time wherever you are. Be blessed and be a blessing.